What's up, sports bettors? Alex here, and I have 3 player props for you on Underdog Fantasy. So this is a platform that's pretty similar to Prize Picks, but what you're going to notice is for 3 pick entries, Underdog Fantasy is giving you a 6x payout, right? So on Underdog, basically any 3 picks you select, you're going to be betting 1 to win 6. This is a fixed payout platform, right? Any 3 picks you select, doesn't matter if you take overs or unders, you're betting 1 to win 6. Whereas on Prize Picks, you're only getting 1 to win 5. So Prize Picks works in a very similar way. It's a fixed payout platform. Any 3 pick entry you create, you're betting 1 to win 5. On Underdog, you're betting 1 to win 6. So Underdog Fantasy offers better payouts for 3 pick entries, which is an advantage of signing up. Another advantage of getting Underdog Fantasy is sometimes there's plays that aren't on Prize Picks. So you can see there's a profitable bet on Cal Quantrill under 4.5 strikeouts. Prize Picks doesn't have this line available, right? This line isn't on Prize Picks. If you don't have Underdog Fantasy, you're missing out on a profitable play. This line isn't on Prize Picks. So more sports books, I say this in a lot of videos, but more sports books, the more accounts you have, because you never know which book is going to be screwing up on a given day, and all these books set lines independently. So the more books you have, more profitable betting opportunities. It's really that simple. So I've explained in other videos, and I'll include this spreadsheet kind of in the description, but what's optimal on Underdog Fantasy, so what you want to go with, is 3 pick entries, right? So you can see for a 3 pick entry, they're giving you a 6x payout. If you lower it to a 2 pick entry, so something like this, you're only getting a 3x payout. So I've kind of explained this before, but what you want to do is you want to figure out, which is optimal. Before you start betting a ton of money on Underdog Fantasy, you got to know what's optimal. Should you be going with, 3 pick entries that have a 6x payout? Should you be going with 4 pick entries that have a 10x payout? What is optimal? Right? What is mathematically optimal? So I've kind of broken it down. The spreadsheet, again, I'll include it in the description. But for example, in 3 pick entries, if you're winning 57% of your player props, so let's say, on Underdog, all these player props, so let's just remove this. So let's say you can select your player props correctly at a rate of 57%. Right? So let's say you can win 57% of your picks, like Chris Bryant, over under half of a single. Right? So let's say you can select your player props correctly 57% of the time. In a 3 pick entry, you're going to be profitable long term, right? You're going to have an 11% ROI, winning 57% of your player props, losing 43%. And literally all I'm doing is I'm taking, the payouts and reverse engineering, okay, if we won 57% of our picks, what does our payout look like? Right? So if we're winning 57% of our plays, that means we have 3 picks in our entry. 18.51% of the time we're going to be winning our 3 pick entry, which is a ROI of 11%. So that's pretty good. An 11% ROI, that's positive, that's great. But if you're playing 2 pick entries and you're winning 57% of your picks, so if you're going with 2 pick entries on Underdog and you're hitting 57% of your picks, your ROI is negative 2.53%. So really horrible, right? So long story short, on Underdog, you want to go with 3 pick entries, and 3 pick entries are equivalent to minus 122 odds, right? So when you're looking right here, you can see Cal Quantrill under 4.5 strikeouts is minus 122 odds, right? So this may be a little confusing because when you look at Underdog Fantasy, there's no odds on this platform, right? There's no odds on Underdog Fantasy. You don't see minus 122 anywhere. But essentially, if you have a 3-leg parlay, right, on a sports book, let's say like WinBet. So if you have a 3-pick parlay on WinBet, what you're going to notice is a 3-pick parlay where all your picks are at minus 122 is a 6x payout, right? It's a 6x payout. You're betting 1 to win 6, which is any 3-pick entry on Underdog, right? So on Underdog Fantasy, literally any 3 picks you select, overs, unders, you're getting a 6x payout. Right? So that's essentially equivalent to getting minus 122 odds on 3 different picks on a sports book. So you look at sports books, they have all these fancy numbers. So if you select 3 player props or 3 bets that are at minus 122 odds, your parlay is going to come out to a 6x payout. You're betting 1 to win 5 in profit, $6 in total payout. So long story short, on Underdog Fantasy, you're getting minus 122 odds, and you want to look for value at minus 122. right? So Underdog Fantasy is, again, it's a fixed payout platform. It doesn't matter if you take overs or unders. You see, your payout does not change. So what you want to do is you want to look for spots where sportsbooks have one side heavily favored. So for Cal Quantrill, all the sportsbooks, right? Every single sportsbook has his under heavily favored, right? Bet Online, a really sharp sportsbook, they have his under at minus 143. FanDuel, Caesars, they have his under at minus 146. So the under for Quantrill is the heavily favored outcome. So we have dozens of data points, right? All these different sportsbooks posting odds. PointsBet has his under juiced all the way to minus 160. So we have tons of data points, tons of sportsbooks, posting odds on Cal Quantrill over under 4.5 strikeouts, and every sportsbook is telling us the same thing. He's a lot more likely to go under as opposed to over, right? All the books have his under heavily juiced, and that's exactly what you're looking for, on Underdog Fantasy. Because Underdog Fantasy doesn't change your payouts based on you selecting overs or unders, right? You're always getting that 6x payout. The strategy for beating them is find spots where sportsbooks have either the under or the over heavily favored. And in this case, all the books have Quantrill under 4.5 Ks as the heavily favored outcome. So that's the first player prop I went with for today. Then you can see I went with Azuna to record a hit. And then I went with Patrick Kane over 2.5 shots on goal. So that's the entry I went with on Underdog Fantasy. Just 3 plays straight from the positive EV tool. So all this tool does, the OddsJam positive EV tool, is it's literally updating. So I have 3 picks, 350 to win 2.1K. I say this in every video, but I gave out plays on Prize Picks earlier. You can see right here is if there's more value on Underdog, I'll have more videos about Underdog. Right? I hit this parlay on WinBet earlier. I gave out this play on Twitter. This 2-pick parlay, if there's more value on WinBet, I'll be giving out more bets on WinBet. I'm just showing you guys what I'm putting my own, money on and kind of trying to explain the rationale behind my picks. So I found all these plays on the EV tool. And again, all the positive EV tool does is it scans, it pulls in, reads in all of these lines from Underdog Fantasy. You can see there's literally tens of thousands of different things that you can bet on Underdog Fantasy. I mean, it just keeps going, right? So all OddsJam is doing is pulling in all of these different lines and trying to show you those rare, right? You don't need a bet on every single game. You don't need a bet on every single game. As a sharp bettor, you just want to follow the value, right? So here, Cal Quantrill, his under is super heavily favored on all the sports books, and you can get this in your underdog entry. So that's a great play to go with, right? But you don't need a bet on every single. Most of these plays aren't profitable if you take the over or the under due to the fact that Underdog bakes in minus 122 juice on both sides, right? So Underdog Fantasy's minus 122 odds for any over or under. So most of these plays aren't profitable, neither the over nor the under. So really what OddsJam is doing is pointing out to you those few rare spots where sportsbooks, right, have one side really heavily favored, right? And in this case, they have Quantrill under 4.5 Ks really heavily favored. The sharpest sportsbooks like Bet Online have this all the way down at minus 143. The under is a big favorite. That's a great play to include in your underdog entry because the sportsbooks are telling you, the under should be super heavily favored. And you can get this in your underdog entry, a platform that doesn't even change your payouts based on you selecting overs or unders, right? It's not even changing your payout. So you just want to find spots. The strategy for beating them, just like Prize Picks, is find spots where sportsbooks have one side heavily favored. In this case, it's Quantrill's under, and include that in your entry, right? That really is the strategy that all the sharp bettors use to beat Underdog Fantasy. You look for spots where books have an under really heavily favored, or an over, you include that in your underdog entry. So long story short, here's what I went with. I also placed this 2-pick parlay. So OddsJam, it works for these fantasy sites. OddsJam is updating millions of odds. So you can see right here, all these UFC lines, basketball lines, right? All these player prop lines. OddsJam's just reading in all that data, right? OddsJam just reads in all that data, millions of odds updating in real time, and points out where there's value on the sportsbooks you use. There's 191 sportsbooks on OddsJam. So sometimes the top plays, so Jock Market, this is another Prize Picks competitor. So this platform also has fixed payouts, very similar to Prize Picks and Underdog. It's almost identical, in fact. So if you don't have, or if you have access to Jock Market, sign up for this platform too, right? Here, sportsbooks have Dylan Brooks under 13.5 points, really heavily favored. You can still get this in your Jock Market entry. I wish this play were on Underdog Fantasy or Prize Picks. Jock Market isn't legal in New York. So I wish I had this play on Underdog Fantasy or Prize Picks, but I don't, right? It's only on Jock Market, so I don't have access to this. But you can see, this would be a great play to include. So this is why I always say get more sports books. So long story short, this parlay on WinBet is just from the EV tool as well. Haley Croft or Jamie Lynn Horth, I apologize, moneyline and under 4.5 Ks for Quantrill. So I included Quantrill in this as well at a better price. I got minus 115 on WinBet, right? And then I also got it minus 122 on Underdog. So hopefully this video was helpful, kind of explaining how to use the positive EV tool, the benefits of having multiple sports books. So, the more sportsbook accounts you have, the better, right? More books, more profitable betting opportunities. So typically all I do when I'm using OddsJam is I set my max odds to plus 190. I put in the sports books I use, and then I just look for these bets in bold and in green. So for example, you can go down the list. You can see, okay, Panthers first period money line plus 175 on Fliff. That's a great play to go with, right? So hopefully this video was helpful. Underdog Fantasy, 3-pick entry. Let's make money.